Okay, so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at finding a record from a CSV file. Now, the way this is going to look is going to have a label on top. You're going to have to enter the customer ID, click on the Find button, and what will happen is when it finds the record, what it's going to do is it's going to put all the data into this blank labels. I got 4 buttons on the bottom, which is Back, Clear, and Help, and Enter Order is the button that will take you onto another screen. It isn't working at the moment. So, as you can remember, when we've written our record for a customer ID, we wrote their first name, last name, gender, email, birthday, and mobile phone. Obviously, please remember the columns and the rows as well in terms of your setup at this point. But at this point, you should be really good in terms of setting up your GUIs. Just remember, we're going to be setting up these blank labels there in this one. So this is my CSV file, and my CSV file has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts to the record. It's got the customer ID, their first name, their last name, their email, their birthday, their gender, and then their mobile phone. Now it's really important to remember when we're accessing records from a CSV file that this starts at 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. So when we're accessing a record, we're starting at point 0, and it's this part of the record, the 0 part of the record, that we're going to be looking to access here. So let's kind of move on to the code. I'll keep this up on the board so we can refer to it as we're going through. So let me just run the program first. So when I run the program, I'll show you the screen that should appear, which is this one. So it's this screen here. As you can see, it's very similar to the CS or the Excel file that I set up. You got your Find Customer label at the start there. You got the customer ID. In here is where I entered the customer ID. So I'm going to put in 1. As you can see there, the first record is 1. I'm going to click on Find, and what's going to happen then is all of the details. You can see James comes up, loan comes up, the gender, which is obviously wrong in this case, the email address comes up there as well, and then the phone number comes up there as well at the very, very end. Okay, clear buttons, we'll come back to that in a little while. Okay, so let's get to the point where we're actually finding a customer, and let's go and work through that. So this one here, when we're setting up this GUI, there's only one string var. There's only one variable that we're going to be looking at, and it's the variable that you enter into the enter box here. So I'm going to call that customer ID, and it's going to get a string var. Now everything else is going to be labels. Now you'll see, I'm not going to set up the blank labels just at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create them when I hit on the Find button. Okay, but we'll talk about that in a couple of seconds. So obviously, row 1 at the moment is the Find Customer heading label, and obviously you're very experienced now at doing this, so that should be no problem to you. Obviously, I've done a column span of 4. Oops, sorry about that. I've done a column span of 4. And also done a pad X and a pad Y also that you can see. Then this row one is made up of a label. It's made up of an entry box, and it's made up of a button, which is the label, the entry box, and the button. Not going to go into much detail with that again, but again, just see that I've done a bit of pad X and pad Y on the button, just to give it that little bit of space there. Again, you should maybe be looking at pad X and pad Y every time you create components of a GUI, just to space it out that little bit nicer there at the moment. Obviously, then moving on to row 2, which is just the label of the first name. Row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7. They're all the labels that you'll see there in the dark Arial, and you can see there I've set the font up as Arial 14 and bold. And obviously, hopefully at this point you'll understand the idea of row equals 2 in this case, column equals 1. So that's row 0 here, row 1, and this is row 2 just here, and I've gone into column 1, which is here. I've missed out on column 0. Finally, I've gone and done the back buttons. Okay, so the back buttons are here, the clear button, the help button, and the enter order button. and you can see where they go. And just to show you again, I've done pad X, pad Y, just to keep a bit of space between them. Obviously they go column 0, 1, 2, and 3, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And obviously they're all in row 8. So at this point you should be able to create your own components for a GUI, as long as you've got it set out on an Excel spreadsheet and then just done from there. So I suppose the only button that we're really interested in is this find button here. So what happens when I click on find? So let me go up here. There's the find button set up in my row 1, and then it's linked to a command called find customer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to find customer. Okay, so okay, here's find customer. Okay, now first thing I do is I create the new variable called a customer ID, which comes from customer ID.get. Now as I said previously, it's the only variable that we create for this GUI. Okay, so it's a very straightforward one, and we just put it into this new variable called a customer ID. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through the CSV file, and I'm going to be going through it one record at a time. Okay, so what I do in any find situation, I set up a variable called found equals 0, and we hopefully now know that 0 equals false. So at the very start of my search, I haven't found anything, so I set that found variable to false. Then what I do is I open up a customer.txt file, which is the one here with all my records for my customers. Okay, and then I create this reader equals CSV reader CSV, which means that reader takes in everything from the customer txt file. Okay, now what I've then got is I now, to order to search through each record, I now do a for loop. So what happens is I say for row in reader. Now every time we loop through, this variable row literally takes everything in the record. So in this first one, when I first loop through, row just has the highlighted data from the customer.txt file. Okay, now what I do then is the following. Okay, I compare row 0. Now row 0 is this very first element, which is 1. Yeah, because remember I said that in a record we start the first element is row 0, and I compare that to the customer ID that was entered by the user. And if they are the same, well, that means that we have a match. So straight away what I do then is I change found to 1. Okay, now in this situation what I do then is when I find the record, I'm going to create a number of labels. Okay, and what each label is going to do, it's going to store the data associated with that part of the record. So let's take for example, so let's just say I found 1. Okay, now obviously what I'm going to do there, in first name, the first name of this customer with the ID of 1 is, his name is James. So what do I do? So I create this blank first name label. Okay, it's a label component. I put it into the frame, and what I do in this situation is I say text equals and row 1. Now row 1 is the second element of the record, which is just James, and all I simply do is I create that label in row 2, so that's row 0, row 1, row 2, and I put it into column 2. Now previously what we would have done when we were creating any label, we would have row equals, and then we'd have our inverted commas, our quotes, and we would have put in the actual data. Then we can just reference the data in row 1 at this point. Similarly, the surname gets it becomes a label as well, a blank label. Create a label. The text equals row 2. So again, if we look at that, I was looking for the last name. So the last name is in row 2. So that's 0, 1, and then loan is in 2. Okay. Now, then I do a gender. Okay. So in the gender, you can see in the record, the gender is here at the back. It's the second last one. So what I then do is I say, okay, well, gender is either going to be 2 or 1 because I got it from radio buttons. So I say if row 4, so let's just count that through, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, okay. So if that's equal to 2, then I create a male. I say male, and you can see that here. Okay, well, obviously it's 2, so it's a female, but you understand what I mean. Else I create another gender label and I put female into it. I create the same labels for the email, for the birthday, and for the mobile phone. And all I simply do is I just link it up to where in the record that they are. And I'll just make sure you understand that. Yeah. Okay. So mobile. Yeah. It's in row square bracket 6. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 here. Okay. I then close the CSV file. Now, obviously, I need to account for the fact that sometimes I might put in a customer ID that I can't find. So so when I go through a for loop, the for loop will literally go through each record until it gets to the very end record. Once it gets to the very end record, it basically closes out of the for loop. It gets out of the for loop because it's got nothing left to see. So what do I do then? So what I then do is I just say the following. I say if found equals 0. So found will remain 0 if a record has never been found. So if we keep checking the customer ID that I put in against the first element of each record, and if I never found it, found will never turn to 1, as you can see here, so found will remain 0. So after I check all of the records here, and I've closed my CSV file, if found is still equal to 0, then all I simply do is it's an error, and I try again, okay? So you can have a look here. So if I put in something like 189, and if I go find, yeah, it'll never come up, and it'll just say try again. Okay. Hopefully you understand that at this point. I mean, what you could do in this situation is after you show the error, you could just basically just clear the label, clear that, and set that back to 0. So we could just do something like this. Just doing this off the top of my head. So we have customer ID dot set. And then blank blank. Okay, I'm just going to close out of this. Just run it one more time. Okay. Minimize this. Bring that up. So again, let's have a look at the records. So if I have something like 6, I should find it, which I do. But if I have something like 176, I get my error, and I just set it back to 0 again. Okay, hopefully that helps you, and good luck with this one. Thank you.